So I'm a big student of the ragas. That's just a thing that's always been a part of my musical thinking. But, really learning the ragas in a classical sense is quite difficult. But there's some tricks that I've learned from studying them that help you get sort of raga-like flavors. Like I've been doing this a lot with jam bands lately, is trying to find ways to get different sounding melodies. And so one of the tricks I learned from the ragas is how to think of a melody in two keys. It's almost like taking an idea that you learned from jazz, which is like playing outside of a chord, and putting it together with ragas and saying, well, how do we like practice this over a drone? So the essence of the technique is to say, let's just start with the power chord as the harmony. Let's just take like C and G, wherever the heck you put them, But what you can do is you can just take a pentatonic scale, any pentatonic scale in any key, and throw it over this. So, if we just start with the regular C pentatonic scale. Really nothing fancy there, nothing we've never seen before. But what if we just take that pentatonic scale and shift it a half step up? I'm just playing box 2 of the regular kind of pentatonic scales you learn to play if you played the blues. Now, of course, there's a trick to getting it to sound raga-like, because if you just play the scale, it just sounds like you're playing in the wrong key. It's just a little weird. To get this effect, what I find is the first thing you want to do is just, take a scale in a key and then move it to some other one. I'll just start with a half step up, My fingers kind of find that. But then I want to find my C and my G with it, my root and my fifth against it. And I'll start with just one string. So here's my root right there, and here's my other two notes. Now, of course, now it just sounds like a Phrygian scale, which is not so bad at all. Or on this string, the same thing. That's not so bad sounding already, but I think to get the really exotic flavors, you really want to focus on how to make it sound like you're skipping the root and the fifth. Like you're really like temporarily, and you're kind of halfway between emphasizing this other keyness and emphasizing, the root that it resolves to. So what I try to do is find little lines that kind of go outside of the key and then resolve back in. So I'm kind of in the pentatonic scale for a bit, but then I kind of resolve back to the 5. And I play with that in a couple different areas, And literally what I've found is that if you just systematically go through all the pentatonic scales one at a time, you get something different from every one of them, and every single one of them is worth exploring in their own right. So if I take box 2 and again throw it up to D here again, so again, sounds kind of like I'm playing in another key a little bit, but T's is something I'm familiar with. So if I add my C's and my G's back in, I get a Lydian scale. But now what I want to find is like that skip the root kind of flavor, because that's what's going to give me my really unique tone. So let's mess with that on just a couple strings at a time. Outside of the key and resolve back in. a totally different effect with every different key, and a couple of them are kind of normal sounding, just they're almost like slightly different spins on keys you've already done, and some of them are like, you get a pretty exotic result. So this is doing the box 2 on E, which would be the major third in the key of C. Alright, so that sounds pretty weird already. Let's see what our scale is when we combine it. If you start on C, we got a C sharp there, or like a D flat, so it's like a flat 2. Major third. Sharp 4, it's the F sharp. Then you got G. Then like a G sharp, which we'll kind of maybe sometimes treat like an A flat, so it's like a flat 6. A natural 7, which is a B, and a C again. That's a really, really weird scale. And one of the fun features of a lot of these is when you get chromatic pairs, kind of on either side of your stable notes. So your C, you have a C sharp and a B natural, so you have a little chromatic run sort of right there around your 1. And you also have one around your 5 in this scale, because you have F sharp and G sharp on either side of the G. So these are where it's really fun to start to try to mix emphasizing the pentatonic nature of the scale with the diatonic nature of the scale. I find if you really hang around the stable notes, if you really start on one, really slow, it really kind of gets that sort of exotic Arabic sort of quasi flavor. Then if you just kind of skip over those notes a whole bunch, and then resolve, you get this bitonal flavor. So figuring out how to really make this scale work, or really how to pull the interesting spices out of it, it's kind of a fun exploration, and just like giving yourself time to just sit there and see what comes up is a really interesting meditation on melodic stuff. So this is definitely a new concept for me, which it's something I've been thinking about for a while, like ever since I was introduced to rags like Marwa and Todi that are definitely, you know, bitonally conceived. I mean, those are really like, Todi is kind of like the pentatonic scale on the 7. So if you're in C, it's like playing a B major pentatonic scale over it. It's like Gurjari Todi that's got the G in there still. And then Marwa is one of my favorite rags. It's like if you're playing in C, but you play an A major pentatonic scale. So again, you have a C and a C sharp. You can think of it as a D flat, but it's really not. It's really a C sharp. So those really inspired me to start thinking this way, but like it's just recently I've started messing with this systematically as a way of getting things I like. And what I started doing a little bit is putting on a thing, just jamming for a while, recording it, and just like focusing on one pentatonic scale and trying to find licks or just like melodic things that are interesting to me. And, you know, just starting to record little fragments and build up a cloud of these kind of like raga-influenced melodic ideas, just to give me different flavors. And I'm like, man, these would be cool to use in jam bands or use as like phrases and songs that just kind of give me a different, yeah, just a different flavor. That's really kind of what I've been focusing on with it. So I don't know. It's something I'm messing around with recently. I'm really excited to write with this over the next couple of months, and who knows? I just thought I'd throw this out there and see what people think. It's a fun exploration that really gives you something different to do with the pentatonic scales. And again, you don't have to explore all of these. You can get so much out of just one scale, and it's like the level to which it develops your melodic thinking to be like, all right, I think I got these pentatonic scales. Great. Well, can you play them in the wrong key and still have it make sense, you know? And this is really how they think in jazz a lot. If you look at like Coltrane transcriptions especially, you know, he plays things that are very obviously arpeggios and scales that are very definite in their patterns, but they're just like, don't fit the chord at all. They just don't. They're something else. They're like an arpeggio or a scale, but the wrong one for the chord he's on. But you know, that's right after he just got done arpeggiating every chord and every scale perfectly for the first minute or so of the song, and then he just starts drifting a bit. I mean, that's really how a lot of jazz artists create tension, is they play, you know, other scales than the ones they're on. It's called playing outside. And this is like a technique I'm sort of doing to learn to develop that sort of thinking, but just really slowly. And for me, this is a way to get more of the flavors out of it. I feel when you play modern jazz a lot, it all kind of gets mushed together. It often goes so fast that you don't really get to appreciate the nuances of what's possible with kind of bitonal melodic thinking. So, you know, playing over the drone, it's not to say you always have to play over the drone if it's not your thing, but it's a really relaxing thing to do. It's really hard to make it sound bad. And it's a really good way to sort of discover the melodic possibilities in a very safe environment that you can gradually pull into other things like jazz soloing or songwriting or, you know, whatever the heck you want to do with it. So anyway, thing I thought I'd throw out there. Hope you all find it as interesting as I do. If y'all have other scale chord combinations that you think would be funny to try, put them in the comments, and yeah, hope to make more raga influenced music with y'all soon. Catch you later. Bye-bye.